Now, Todd, I was going to address my first question to Natalie, because the thing that we should point out is Natalie's not just the star of this movie, she's also a producer on it. She brought this project to you. So rather than address her, I'll address you. Tell me about what you made of it when it came through, because I have to say, watching the film, it seems like material that was tailor-made for you.
Well, I don't know if it was tailor-made for me, but I am forever in the debts of what Sammy Birch did on the page, and that Natalie Portman read it and thought of me for it, and that it came to me, and that I got to bring all these incredible partners into the process of making it. Listen, I don't read nearly as many scripts as a lot of as my producers do and as a lot of people do. I think this script was circulating and already making quite a name for itself. And it came to Natalie in a newly formed producing company that she started. This was right at the height of COVID. Everything was shut down. We were all waiting to know when and how we would get back to work. And I was reading more stuff than normal and than usual. But this script just cut through in such a remarkable way. It had such an amazing tone and sense of confidence in navigating this very disturbing territory, and really making you, think about how it is we do tell stories, and the cost of that enterprise, and the stories we tell ourselves about how we, survive our lives, and the way we perform those stories. I think those were the themes that were just so bristling on the page, and it was my excitement to take it on as a director and make it into a movie.
Did you like the idea of kind of the challenge of it as well? Because I think the script does a beautiful job it's never didactic, it's never telling you what to think about these people, any of them, but it walks a very fine line, to keep you on the edge. Directing that is going to be another layer to it. Was that kind of what drew you in as well?
Without a doubt. Yeah. It was because the script trusted the reader, and I felt like that's what I wanted for the experience of the viewer, to make it be this sort of excited state of curiosity about what's really going on here. Navigating how your feelings shift about these characters as the story unfolds. And so it took, to translate it into film, some choices I thought would have to be fairly bold about how to set that up and make that be kind of an excitement in the movie, the experience of watching the movie. And one way was how we shot it, these sort of extended shots, a lot of shots in mirrors, where the actors play directly to the lens of the camera as the mirror, as a reflection in the mirror, but also in a very strong and upfront use of music.
We have Natalie Portman, ladies and gentlemen.
Nice to see you all.
Welcome. We were just talking about how brilliant you are. Now, Sammy, can I go to you and just ask? The Mary Kay Letourneau case. It was such a notorious sort of story in the 90s, and a lot of people had a lot of opinions about it, like we seem to love to do, with sordid details and all the rest of it. But to pick the story up 20 years later, and to frame it with this kind of actress coming to have coming to play the part and have a meeting with this woman, with Gracie. Tell me about where those ideas came from. What intrigued you about that? Throwing this bomb into the middle of their lives.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to do a literal retelling or recreation, and I felt like looking for any way to pivot or take a step to the left, is always helpful with breath and space and room for humor and investigation. And so in that case, there's this time gap. I mean, the very first seed of the idea was in thinking about a couple like that, a fictionalized couple like that, what, imagining kids going away to college and an empty house and being, 36 years old and young enough to really start over, but so much that hadn't been said, and just that quiet, like that first opportunity to start to process everything that happened, and also the media blitz that followed, that second arrow. So that was really the seed, and then finding a way in, to bring some of that humor with this character of Elizabeth, who's an actress, coming to study Gracie and try and get off her network television show about an animal hospital. It just felt like there was a nice kind of tonal balance of this triangle of these three characters.
I love that she's a network TV actress as well. It's like such a specific thing there. Can I ask, what you described there is, a wealth of possibilities, it sounds like. What you do very well with the script is to balance those possibilities. Actually, so much of the story is in the subtext. It's in glances, it's in looks. How do you bake that in? Like, what's the challenge of baking that in?
I love the term baking, given all the cake baking and. Yeah. Well, I think it's there's an element of this. There's so much of it is about denial and what's not being said, and so the tension really lies with the audience, and it's like a physical feeling. And I do feel like there's this almost, similar to how a horror movie functions. Instead of like, don't go in the attic, it's like, say something honest, please. Like, I feel like you kind of beg for that in a way with this incredible tension that exists in all these scenes. But so yeah, I think it's just that. It's just choosing those moments and a lot of them were, chosen in these performances where you see those masks slip and someone says something truthful.
Well, Natalie, I mentioned earlier that you brought this project to Todd. You were on board for this script very early. What was the experience like for you of reading it? Did you immediately see the possibility in this character?
Yeah, Sammy's script was extraordinary. When I read it, I was so blown away. I mean, to have two female characters that are so deftly drawn and so specific and so nuanced, and then who have this incredible relationship with each other where they're so drawn to each other, but also so combative with each other and competitive with each other, and over who gets to tell the story, who gets to tell the truth. And it was incredible. And some of those lines, I think I discovered how incredible they were as we were saying them. You'd be like, oh, there's so much in the silences. Like, I always talk about in the makeup scene when I ask Julie's character, what was your mother like? And she says she was beautiful. And like on the page, that looks, you just kind of go through it. It's so simple. And then when you say it, like all of what is not said and unsaid by that is so emotional.
Did you have ideas when you first read it about who could play opposite in the Gracie roles? I mean, I do wonder, obviously, Mr. Haynes and Ms. Moore have a fantastic history together. I wonder if you were sort of using him to get to...
Well, Todd's just a pawn in I mean, I've been dreaming of working with Todd forever. I'm such a deep admirer of his work, and then had the joy of discovering that he's as fine a human being as he is brilliant an artist. And it's rare that those two of those things are married in a person, but his vision and his artistry are just extraordinary. And then part of the artistry is that humanity, because he makes everyone feel so comfortable and so good and so aligned, and he's so transparent with his intention and his vision, and communicates so beautifully that we all felt so safe and comfortable to be free. And then of course I'm like in awe and love and admiration of my entire life with Julie, and her collaborations with Todd have been some of the most meaningful films my life that have inspired me. So, I mean, it was obviously a huge dream. I didn't really think it would be possible, but of course it was the luck of my life that they both were interested in doing it.
I love the dynamic between these two characters. And Julianne, you know, you've been on many grand adventures with this man to your right. When he brought this character to you, what kind of went through your mind about how you find her? Because I mean, it's such a moral complexity, and you bring such humanity to her, but at the same time, you know that the audience is going to be watching this film with very clear ideas about what she did.
Yeah. You know, the funny thing is that when I said yes immediately. I mean, Todd actually slipped me the script. He said to me, he goes, "Natalie, just send me this. I want you to see it." And immediately I was like, "Oh my God, absolutely. When do we start? When do we start?" And then at one point we had these weird scheduling issues, and so I was going to have to kind of go in right after another movie. And I said to my husband, "It'll be okay though, because I can do this. It's with Todd. It'll be easy. It'll be fine." And then I started working on it when the other movie moved, fell apart. So I just started doing the work, and I called up Todd. I said, "I can't do this. This is too hard." I was really struggling because of that. I'm like, who is this woman? How she is holding on so strongly to her own narrative, to her own performance, and what is that performance? And I was struggling with some, in her home, she appears to be in charge, giving everyone all these directions, saying this goes this way, this goes. And it wasn't quite jiving with what I was feeling about her until I realized that it was like that she's like a little girl with an apron on and a wooden spoon in her hand, saying, "Today I'm the mom, and mom says this." And it was that, her insistence, and it's in the script, her naivete, her experience with her brothers and her father, and her hyper femininity. She's incredibly genderized, and so and basically, this great love story that she's had, that she kind of, that's how she sees it, that they fell in love, and they were like Romeo and Juliet, and he's her prince, she's the princess. And in order to do that, she needed to elevate a 13-year-old boy to being a man, and she remains a child. So hanging on to that narrative, that's what was really interesting. The will of someone who can do that, and the distance between what she is telling, what she is performing, and what happened is vast. And then there's all this crazy volatility, emotional volatility. And that was what Sammy put in the script too, that these private moments of, almost, she just basically disintegrates, but in public she's something else.
Charles, what's really fascinating about Joe as a character is he starts the film really, literally, really in the background. He's behind the scenes of these two women meeting for the first time, and you can get a sense immediately of a certain. He was very protective of Gracie. Over the course of the film, the more time, the more time she spends in this world, the more the surface starts to crack for Joe. Tell me about charting that from your experience, what it must be. I wonder what went through your mind about what must have been going through his mind, if that's not too complicated a way of phrasing it.
No, that's a great question. Her script and just kind of the layout of who Joe was so fast and gave me so much opportunity to understand who this man was. And the first thing I really looked at was the immense responsibility that was given to him at such a young age, being a father, and just how that would progress to the age of 36, leading up to the 2-week span of his kids graduating and being an empty nester for the first time, and just kind of understanding the repressed kind of tragedy that lives inside of him that slowly comes to the surface with the arrival of Elizabeth, Natalie's character, and just his own awakening, so to speak, and just understanding kind of how that would live in just his physical nature, because Joe doesn't want to take up any space. He's kind of just in the background. He's following orders, he loves his kids, but really he's putting everything before himself. And when he gets the opportunity to talk about himself, you know, for the first time, really in the walk and talk scene with Elizabeth, we kind of see him start to break open.
Well, Natalie, I have to ask about Elizabeth's motivations as well, because they're so nebulous in the early part of the film. And you know, to be honest, throughout the film, you never quite know where she stands on any of it. How much of a joy was that to play for you? And I have to ask, is she based on any actresses, any actors or actresses that you might have come across?
Well, I felt that Sammy's writing of this character was so specific and so familiar. I mean, I think that there's something that we all talk about a lot of, you know, that we're not here to be judges of characters, and that we can never judge our characters, that we're trying to get into people's hearts and minds, and sometimes you play people who commit crimes. That doesn't mean that you believe that those crimes should be committed. We as artists are curious, you know, about the internal workings of the human heart, and that art is amoral. And I think this is a big question of, can art really be amoral? Like, is that really a possibility? And I think that, you know, I don't think there's an answer to it, but I think that this certainly pokes a lot of holes in that kind of argument, which, you know, is amazing to get to go into, because that's what we do all the time.
Todd, I'd love to ask about, first of all, the setting of the film. You know, we were talking outside about, you know, planes flying overhead, this kind of family living what seems like an idyllic life by the lake, and then you start to realize it's not so idyllic. You also shot the film in 23 days, which I find remarkable. Tell me about what you wanted to do, where you wanted to place this family.
The original setting was in Maine, northeast U.S., and we, of course, as things happen in filmmaking and when schedules change and shift, and all of a sudden I became available middle of last year to possibly do this movie, and checked into everybody and to see if there was a possibility that Julianne and Natalie might be free sometime, and they overlapped for a very brief little time in the fall of last year. And so, but the film is set in May. It's very important. The kids are graduating, and it's sort of hanging over the narrative, this sort of panic about the fact that this is going to be an empty nest, that the couple is going to be alone and confronting each other. Couldn't possibly shoot May in the Northeast or anywhere in the Eastern Seaboard, and I had just been in Savannah, Georgia for the festival recently. I'd been there before. And I just started to talk about the possibility of Savannah with Sammy Secco, my production designer. And then we started to talk to Sammy, and Sammy had actually a lot of experience in Savannah, from having started out in her college, going to SCAD initially before she went to NYU. Sam and I went out in August and just started to find these